Hello, welcome back to A Boring Revolution, your number one news source for everything in regards to the Boring Company. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode. And today's episode is going to be a brief breakdown of why I think utility tunnels are a great source of income for the Boring Company, have many different use cases, could fundamentally change how cities operate from an efficiency perspective, and also make them run a lot more efficiently. So let's have a look into this. First of all, what are utilities? I'm sure we all have our ideas about what is the most important utility, but there are various utilities. A utility is an essential service that plays a vital role in economic development. These are usually part of a network or system. Pretty much every single city, town, sometimes even villages have quite large networks of various utilities, and they are essential in developed countries and are becoming very essential in developing and third world countries as well. These are kind of your main four: water, so drinking water, gas, natural gas, electricity, and broadband. Very commonplace. So also there has been various trends and patterns throughout history for different kinds of systems developing, as well as other important systems that came about many hundreds of years ago. That includes sewers. Sewers have been around for a very long time. Certainly in and around London, the sewer system is pretty much quite an amazing piece of infrastructure, really, when you look at when it was built. Heating as well, various ways to heat. Obviously, you've got hot air, you've got hot water, even steam, cooling as well, rainwater, so stormwater systems. So utilities are either bringing a useful service to someone or taking away something that they wish to dispose of. And garbage as well. Some cities have these garbage disposal systems underground, which is quite interesting, but it's generally quite a small proportion of cities and towns worldwide have those kinds of systems. Was critical to the development of cities in the 20th century. Very important. Without good utilities, these cities would not have developed as quickly or as densely. Utilities are usually buried under walkways and roads, hence why you often see roadworks, and you often have to take different routes to places because they are replacing or repairing or upgrading the utilities below the ground that you use. So, things seem to work at the moment. Really, if you live in any kind of city or town in Europe or North America or even Asia, these systems generally work. People enjoy the services that they provide, and you generally don't have that many problems in a well-run city. Why change? Why bother? Why not just keep if it's not broken? Why fix it? And that's a great question. Well, the good thing about utilities, from our perspective, so people that support the Boring Company, is that they are constantly being replaced. They don't generally have a super long shelf life. They're not going to be underground for 200-300 years without requiring some repair. So at some point you're going to have to basically dig a very expensive trench and then close off a road, which is then going to cost you money, and then you're going to have to pull them up and either replace them or repair them. So if you could kind of reduce the amount of time that they are being repaired, that would be a good thing, and also reduce the amount of time that you have to close roads dramatically. That also is a good thing. So essentially, if you could do that, and especially cast iron, a lot of cast iron water mains in the UK are constantly being pulled up, repaired, and then other sections break, and then you have to pull that up, and they are basically on the last legs and need to be replaced fully. So underground is very, and I stress that word, very congested and saturated with multiple utilities. They are stacked on top of one another. Cities like New York are very very congested. It's notorious for issues with utilities. Trying to get access to one thing means you need to move another thing, and that's just a really, really crazy way of doing things. It's like, imagine that you had all your books in a bucket, essentially, and to get to the book you wanted to get to, it was right at the bottom rather than having it on a shelf. And that is essentially what we want for a Boring Company utility tunnel, is you have almost like a shelf, and the utility is there. You know, it's able to be repaired, it's able to be inspected, it's even able to be expanded if necessary, adapted very, very easily without having to dig up, you know, hundreds of cubic yards of roadway. So, so very saturated. Obviously, that is also dangerous, yeah? I've worked on a job where someone hit a power cable. Trust me, it is not pretty. It is very dangerous. I've also heard of jobs where people have either died or been seriously injured by hitting utilities. So you've got to be very, very careful. Also, and this is probably the main one, wastage. Often you have issues with these utilities and you do not realize, or the utility provider does not realize for many, many months, if not years, that they are leaking, or there's a crack and gas is escaping, or you know, you've got an opening and the pressure's low and that's costing you money. There's all sorts of problems when you have, you know, issues with the quality of the utilities, and when they need essentially repairing, but you don't know where the repair is required and you don't even realize it's there. Wastage costs you money and also can cause problems. Water leaks can cause subsidence to roads. This has happened in Manchester many times. It's very expensive, and it's just a horrible waste of things like water and gas when they're just leaking all the time. And it's endemic, really is endemic. Waste is endemic with utilities, and that needs to change. That is probably the big one to consider, is just the humongous amount of wastage there is at the moment with utilities. Repair work on utilities is often expensive and time consuming. You know, you're going to have to section off the road, you're going to have to make sure it's safe, you're going to have to excavate down, you're going to have to check the ground with your cable avoidance tool all the time to make sure you're not hitting anything. Then if you find something, you might need to move it, you know, 500 mil to the left so that you can get access, and it's all an absolute palaver and costs lots of time and money, damages the economy, and also again is dangerous if something goes wrong. You know, people experienced people that are working in the groundworks sector, you know, have accidents in these trenches. You know, very minor accidents sometimes, but you know, it all adds up. Yeah, and closing roads to enable these works causes congestion. There's nothing worse than being stuck at roadworks. It really is not great. And population growth demands more efficient approaches. So there's definitely better ways of doing this. We're currently stuck in this rut where we, of the opinion that we've done it like this for the last, 180, 200 years. This is fine. Let's just keep doing it. But really, when you look at the cost of constantly repairing things, constantly, losing time because of roadworks, constantly all this wastage, all that adds up, and that is not good. That is not good from a cost perspective, and we need to change that. So, this is my idea for the ultimate Boring Company utility tunnel. Now, granted, you might not end up with quite as many things in here. This is just a really kind of, absolutely everything that I could possibly think of stuffed into this tunnel. You might end up with essentially 3 or 4 things. You might end up with high voltage cables, your water main, gas, and maybe one other thing, fiber optic. But imagine you could put all these different things in here and you had space to do it. That means installing these various things like district heating, which I'm a big fan of. The cost of district heating is expensive because you have to excavate these massive trenches and then install these massive tubes, essentially, pipework, which can be up to 800, 900 millimeters in diameter. Probably going to be smaller than that, but it can be up to that size. That is very, very expensive, and that ultimately results in a lot of district heating proposals being turned down because it's going to cost $1.5–2 million dollars per mile to install this pipework. If you could put it in a tunnel that was already there, that would save a ton of money. Things like fiber optic cables, you could bundle those together. That means you're going to have very, very high speed internet access. People need that. People want that. That is a service that you can sell. So if you could work with another third party, that would be excellent, really excellent to install, hundreds of miles of fiber optic cables very, very cheaply and efficiently. And remember, you could probably install this maybe 4, maybe 5 times faster than if you had to install it in a trench at ground level. Also, we have things like potentially, and don't get me wrong, I don't think hydrogen is possibly the greatest use, but I'm just throwing that idea out there. You could put hydrogen in there, you could move existing natural gas lines, things like that. Another good thing about this tunnel is you can inspect it. You can inspect it 3, 4, 5 times a day. If you anticipate there is a problem, you can go searching for it. You could have sensors in here. Even the smallest of leaks, is going to puddle around on the floor here, and it's going to be obvious that there's a problem. You could have carbon monoxide detectors and things like that, and gas sensors and things like this that you can detect when there's issues. Another thing as well, high voltage cables. Obviously, in a lot of American cities, they have these high voltage cables strung up above ground, and they don't like moving them, but they are potentially a little bit dangerous. So if you could put them underground and put them nice and neatly into racks, it maybe increase the voltage, maybe have more cables, that would definitely help people a lot. Broadband as well. If you don't want the fiber optic, maybe you could be a bit more efficient and just put broadband in. In New York, they have a steam system. I've put that in here. A lot of businesses use steam for various things. Another idea I've had is pure DC power rather than AC power. The reason I've put that in there is because superchargers use DC power, so they have to convert AC to DC. If you could have a huge battery pack in a building and then you could send it 300, 400 meters down to a supercharger, that's going to save a lot of space on that site there. So there's a lot of good ideas here. If I was going to kind of prioritize what I think is a good idea, I'd probably say number one, district heating, and then you've got all your standard ones, drinking water, gas as well, although gas is going to go away at some point. District cooling as well in some cities. So you could replace district heating with district cooling in cities like LA. I can't imagine it gets that cold, so you probably wouldn't need that. But there's a ton of options here, and the big question is, how do you really make this work, and how do you make money out of doing this? Well, what you want is a continuous revenue stream, and there's various ways you could do that. Maybe you could rent out the tunnel. In this instance here, what I've proposed is that you build the tunnel. It's around $6 million per mile. I think it's going to go down a lot more. I think potentially we could end up closer to $4 million per mile at some point. So, if you can sell a cubic meter in this tunnel for $680, you're going to more than double your money. Easily double your money at 6 million. At 4 million, you're probably going to triple your money. So you're selling, essentially you are selling space. So you're saying, I'm going to sell this space here, and then you can have it for $680 per cubic meter. Also, there'd be an annual kind of maintenance fee where you would look after the tunnels, you'd ensure that they are dry, that they are ventilated, that they are safe, that people are not going in there that shouldn't be going in there, that you're offering people access when they need to go in there. That would be $28,000 per mile, and we potentially could have hundreds of miles of tunnels in one city. That's a nice income. And I think that's quite low, actually. You could probably increase that over time. Maybe like have a 5% annual increase on top of that. So there's good ways to make money out of doing this. Initially, you would probably start with a water main, a gas main, and your high voltage electrical cables. And then maybe over time, you would add your district heating and maybe more fiber optic, and then maybe, you know, district cooling, and maybe even at some point you DC power. And if someone maybe these could be used for other things. I mean, you know, there's so many use cases. You could run steam, like I've said. You know, you could run beer from a brewery. If you had a brewery, you could run beer through these. You could run anything. You could theoretically pump, even cold air, hot air, anything, even heavy oils, although probably that sort of thing is going away, so it's not necessary. But anything you can put your mind to, you can send through here. So that's how you make money out of it. You obviously have to bring partners in. You have to gather interest before you build these tunnels. Other possible uses just pure uses. So you wouldn't have anything else other than it being a sewer, other than it being for storm water. I personally prefer this approach because I think that there's more money to be made out of this by working with various different utility companies. However, something like a sewer probably doesn't need to be more than about 1.4 meters or 1.5 meters in diameter. You know, you can move a lot of sewage through that kind of diameter tunnel. Stormwater, you know, in a big city, potentially, you know, you're looking 11 foot, 12 foot, maybe even up to 14 foot, so slightly bigger than these tunnels, if 14 foot internal diameter. So there are lots and lots of different use cases. Stormwater, you'd probably sell it to the local authority, so they'd be paying, you know, $7, $8 million, $9 million per mile, and then you'd take off, you know, 40-50% on top of that. So there's good money to be made. And sewers, you probably could do it for a sewer, but I'd recommend that you kind of stick to an excavation, and then you have your precast units nearer the surface, around 1.4 meters in diameter. Okay, so I hope you like that. I want to explore this concept more in a future video. This is kind of your introduction to utility tunnels. I'm personally very excited by district heating. I've got a lot of very big ideas. I have spoke to someone in regards to district heating. They also think there's a lot of good options if you can combine traditional utilities and a district heating system into one tunnel. Also, it's super efficient at producing and distributing heat, and it's super efficient when it comes to maintenance and expanding that system. And you can get heating from various sources, whether it's geothermal, biomass, nuclear, traditional fossil fuels, wind, solar, all sorts of things can be combined to form a district heating system. How do you heat or cool 400,000 homes? And I think 400,000 homes could be increased upon. So this system, if the boring company owns it, could potentially earn them a lot of money, and maybe they just buy into it. Who knows? Who exactly benefits from these utility tunnels? Essentially everyone. I'm going to explain why that is and who these parties actually are. What are some of the additional benefits of these tunnels? So what makes them so good as utility tunnels rather than just burying things underground at the surface? Obviously, number one is that you can do maintenance really easy, and the maintenance costs are low, and you can inspect them, and there's very low wastage and various other things as well. And of course, number one important question that I'm sure you all want to ask is, how much Dogecoin do I own? Possibly quite a lot, who knows. Anyway, thank you all for joining me on this wonderful video. I really do appreciate that. Please like and subscribe to this video if you've not already done so. Please join the Discord server. Lots of new people joining the Discord server. Come on, say hello to me and we'll have a good chat. Twitter and Instagram as well. And I'd appreciate some feedback in the comments below on part 1. Part 2 is in the works as we speak. Thank you to all my Patreons. There are lots and lots of them. And we have a new Patreon, Tom Rodinger. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting the channel. And yeah, thank you for watching. Really do appreciate all that. As always, that is phenomenal. And hopefully we will see you on the next video. Thank you everyone, And remember, don't be boring. See you on the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.
Hello, everybody.
This is Sparta!